Now let's talk about how to use pointers as function parameters. A pointer can be a parameter, and just like a reference variable, it gives the function access to the calling function. So you have access to the original variable. And you might be wondering, so this comes back to what I just mentioned because of the question. You might be like, well, why would we want to use pointers in the first place when we can use reference variables instead? And reference variables seem a little bit easier, right? So the reason why is because you need pointers for some C string operations, and then many a lot of functions in the C++ library require pointers. So what I want to do with this, since we've already seen how to use a reference variable, I want to write code for using both a reference variable in a function and a pointer in a function, so you can just compare them and see what the difference is, because they're a little bit different, but they're really similar. So over here I'm going to put, this is going to be the pointer as a reference variable in a function, as a variable in a function, and this is going to be the reference variable in a function. So let's actually start with a reference variable, since we know that. So let's say that this is our main function. We have some value, and we're going to call a function called getNum. So we want a function that's going to get a number and store it to value. So we need this to be a reference variable if we don't want the function to return anything. So if we have void getNum, an integer, and then have the ampersand, and then just the name of the variable. So let's just call this user_num. So this is our function. And then I'm just going to keep this really simple. So this is just going to be cin user_num. So this is going to read in user_num, whatever the user types. It's going to store it to value. So now let's see how we would do the same thing with a pointer used in a function. So over here, let's say we have int number, and then I'm just going to say get number. This time, this is a little bit different. So for the reference variable, we just sent the name of the variable. Here, since we're going to be using a pointer, we need to send it the address of the variable. Ampersand, and then number. Okay, so that's basically what we'd have in the main function. Now let's look at what we would have in our function. So void get number. And then we're going to have a pointer here. So this is going to be int star. And I'm just going to call this input to make it shorter. And there's no space here, so let me make that a little bit closer. And then we're just going to do cin input. So what this is doing, first of all, this right here is saying that this function is using a pointer. So we're basically telling the program that this function is using a pointer. And then what we're doing right here is we're using the dereference operator. We're getting a value from the user, and we're storing that value to whatever address input has. So we're dereferencing that address, and we're storing whatever we get from the user to that address. So this is how we would send a variable into a function using a pointer. Let's look at how we would send an array into a function with a pointer. So this is program 9-12 in the book. And so this program says that, like if we go to the description, it says that it demonstrates that a pointer can be used as a parameter to accept the address of an array. So let's just look at what's going on in this program. So we have some function prototypes here. The first is get sales, double, and then we have a pointer and then an integer. And then we have double total sales, and then a double pointer and integer. This first one isn't returning anything. The second one is returning a double. Let's go down here and look at the main code. So we have a constant integer that's basically the length of our array. So this array is storing sales data for each quarter. So there's 4 quarters, so the array is 4. The array has 4 elements. We have our call here, so get sales and then sales quarters. So we don't need the ampersand because the name already represents the address. All right. So then down here we're going to display the total sales for the year. So we have total sales, and then we're sending this function our array again, and then the length of the array, which is quarters. So let's look at how we're sending the array into this function. So we have our get sales function, and what this function is going to do is it's going to ask the user for the sales for each quarter. So it's going to be, so right here it says enter the sales figure for quarter, and it's going to read in whatever the user enters and store it to the first element of the array. And then the second time through, it's going to read in and store whatever the user enters to the second element of the array. So we've sent the array, like we've told the function that we're sending it a pointer, so that basically means we're sending it an address. And then we have int size, and then with our function call, we send the function just the array name, because the array name is already the address of the first element in the array. So what we have here is enter the sales figure for quarter, and then this is going to be first quarter. So we have count plus 1 because this is starting at 0, but we really want the quarters to start at 1. And then we have cin, and this is going to display or save whatever the user enters to first array 0, then array 1, then array 2, and 3. So let's run this real quick. So maybe I'll look at this one real quick too. So this one is an array this is a function that's summing up all of the sales that we've had. So this function is getting the array with the sales for the 4 quarters. It's going to sum those up and then return the sum. So what I'm going to do is run this so we can see what it's doing, and then we're going to make one change. Let's see, G++. So this program is asking for the sales for the 4 quarters, and then it's displaying the total sales. Let's go back in here real quick. So right here, we're reading in the sales for the quarters, and we're using index notation to store those values to the array.